Finance used to run that report overnight. Now it finishes while you watch. Nobody rewrote it. What changed is the database underneath it. 3 things keep turning up on projects, all from that same database. First, that report. Second, somebody on the basis team says the word merge, and the disk gets planned about 20% bigger than the data it has to hold. Third, on the SAP forums, the same question has been coming back since 2010. If the data is all in memory, what happens when the power goes out? All 3 are the same story. Everything you post in S4HANA lands as rows in one database called HANA. Today we follow one journal entry through it. 3 stops, 1 answer each. Here's our journal entry, posted on a Tuesday. 3 fields: document number, amount, cost center. In your head, that's a row, fields side by side. Here's the fact underneath. Memory is a straight line. In a classic database, the fields of one row sit back to back along that line. HANA turns the table 90 degrees, so the entries of one column sit back to back instead. All the document numbers together, then all the amounts. Your report wants 3 columns out of 40, so HANA reads 3, not 40. And those 3 sit in one stretch. And I mean physically, where the data sits in memory, not how you model data in a warehouse. Storing data in columns lays it out in memory the way the processor likes it. That's SAP's own explanation, not mine. 3 stops, 1 journal entry. That's the whole video. If you want SAP explained at this level, subscribing keeps it coming. Now comes the part that actually explains the speed. Take the cost center column. It does not hold the words cost center 4711 40,000 times. It holds 2 things. A directory of the different values, each one listed once, with a number beside it. And then, in place of the words, it stores nothing but those numbers. And that's the default on every column in the table. Watch what that does to your query. Your report asks for cost center 4711. HANA looks it up once in the directory and gets back its number. From there it compares numbers, not words. It only goes back for the real words at the very end, for the rows that made it into your result. Here's the part almost nobody tells you. Packing the data down like that doesn't just save space, it makes searching faster. The fewer different values a column holds, the shorter its numbers get, 2 bits wide instead of 6. And the same search runs noticeably quicker. So what does that buy you? Searching a column of numbers is that fast. So a total doesn't have to exist before somebody asks for it. In my S4 HANA versus ECC video, I told you that those tables of pre-calculated totals go away. This is why they can go away. On a project, that shows up in 3 places. The total is always current, because it got counted just now. Nobody has to log a totals row to write into it, so people working at the same time collide less. And people used to build an extra index whenever a report was slow. Mostly, that stops. Mostly. But not never. Primary keys always have an index, and HANA builds those itself. Which one surprised you more, the report that suddenly got fast, or the extra index that mostly went away? Tell me below. Now here's the turn. Everything I've shown you so far is the reading side, and our Tuesday entry was never there. A tightly packed column is expensive to write into, so HANA doesn't. Every posting lands in a small second area built for writing, called the delta. Every query reads both lets the packed main part and the delta. Every so often, the system folds the delta into the main part. That's the merge. And that's the moment HANA actually works out the packing, which is why writing stays cheap and reading stays fast. That explains the second thing from the start. The merge is expensive. It rewrites the whole main part of every column back onto disk, even if only 4 rows changed. During the merge, the old copy and the new one sit there side by side. So the disk gets planned about 20% bigger than the data. And that's why the merge often shows up as an alert, not a concept. The alert says, delta too big, or nothing merged in weeks. Back to the question from the start. If the data is all in memory, what happens when the power goes out? The usual answer is that it gets written to disk as well. That's true. But that answer never says what or when. So here's what actually happens. Every few minutes, Hana writes everything that changed since last time onto the disk. By default, that's every 5 minutes. That's called a save point, one consistent picture of the database. In between, every change also goes into a second file, the log. That write finishes before your posting is confirmed. By the time the screen says saved, it's already on disk. The power cut takes the memory. The restart reads the last save point back in and replays the log after it. So a HANA database comes back up exactly the way a disk-based database does. That one surprises people. And here's what ties the 3 stops together. Our Tuesday entry was sitting in the delta, and the delta itself is never written to disk. It survives through a log of its own, which gets replayed on restart. The merge is one of the very few moments that move the table data itself onto the disk. The save point is another. Surviving that power cut isn't something bolted on. It's part of what this database promises. 2 more things will keep you out of trouble on the project. First, the phrase "in memory" does not mean everything is in memory. SAP's own documentation says HANA holds the bulk of its data. The bulk, not all of it. Columns get loaded the first time something asks for them. If nobody ever asks for a column, it never gets loaded at all. You can even set a column to be read from disk page by page, instead of the whole column sitting in memory. After a restart, the first run of a report is sometimes slower than the second. That's the loading, not the report. Second, HANA really does need a lot of memory. SAP's own sizing recommendation is to budget twice the memory, as much working room as data. So when somebody asks why the machine needs that much memory, that's the answer. It isn't marketing. So, my honest read. The database got that good at searching and adding up, so the best place to do the work moved. It used to pay to pull rows out and do the arithmetic up in the application. Now it pays to push the work down and bring back only the answer. On projects, you'll hear that called code to data. That one shift sits behind a surprising amount of S/4HANA. One table instead of many. A report that calculates instead of one that just reads. Understand that shift and the phrase "built for HANA" stops being a slogan. If you want more of what's underneath, subscribe. That's what this channel is for. And one thing to take with you. Next time somebody tells you a report is slow, ask one question. Is it slow because it reads a lot? Or because it's the first time today anyone asked for that column? 2 different problems. Now you can tell them apart.